The competitive 40K network presents Art of War. Art of War. Strategy and tactics. Discussions with the best players on the planet. Now your host, Nick Nanavati.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Art of War podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nanavati Week, and this week we have a brand new exciting episode guest for you, Folger Pyles from Ohio. How you doing, Folger?
I'm doing good, Nick. Thank you so much for asking and having me on.
You're so welcome. Thank you for coming on. For those of you who don't know Folger, he is an up-and-coming all-star player. He made it to the finals of the Las Vegas Open back in January, early part of this year, and he was playing Eldar. And now he's back at it, winning the Rumble on the River GT with Custodes of all factions. Custodes is a faction we have not talked about in months. They have been not the strongest performer at all, and they're really just not on the top of anyone's tongue, except Folger. Folger over here has been crushing people, taking names, and kicking ass. So we're going to go through his list today. Part one of this two-part show is going to be about Folger. We're going to get to know him. We're going to get to know this man, the myth, the legend, how he does it with Custodes. We're going to break down his list, its strategy, how he pilots it, all that good stuff. And then if that's not enough for you, because you want to know more, that's where you can get more on the Art of War 40K Patreon. You can subscribe on patreon.com/AOW40K and get access to this part two of the episode, along with 260 plus other part twos and our amazing Discord server. In this episode, part two, we're going to go through his actual games from the tournament, go through round by round, his tactics, his moves. I'm going to ask him questions. He's going to give me some answers, and we're going to get through it. Folger, are you excited?
Was born excited, Nick.
That's good. That's a great way to be born. I love that answer. This is gonna be a fun episode.
Let's do this then.
All right. Tell me about how you got into Warhammer.
Okay, so I was in middle school, and I was playing Warhammer Fantasy 7th Edition, my local game store with my cousins. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then I was just pretty much casual basement games for 10 years. And then I went away from the hobby a bit, started playing Magic the Gathering. And then a bunch of my friend groups got back into 40K. And I said, hey, I know how to play Warhammer, kind of. And I got back in. This was in, I want to say about 2 years ago, give or take. This was 9th edition. I picked up Drukhari. This was just after the Thick City nerf. And was off to the races. Just loved the game, picking it up again.
That's awesome. I started playing middle school too, so this is as one old school player to another. But it's even crazier when you think about that you've only been playing for 2 years recently. You dropped the game, picked it back up, which is common. But what's uncommon is 2-year trajectory to be at the finals of LVO and winning GTs with Custodes and off-meta army pick here. Folger, what is your entryway back into the game look like? Because obviously you go from not knowing much about Warhammer, it's a different edition, to now crushing tournaments. That doesn't happen overnight. What has that been looking like?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's gonna be kind of hard to explain. I can't explain why I'm above average, I guess, at 40K. So I started off, really my local group is what helped a lot, of just consistent tournaments. So I play for a team called Gym Wargaming. It started 6 months before I got back into 40K, just a once a month RTT with 15 to 20 people and just playing games. And I'm pretty fortunate that I have a pretty dedicated friend group that we always have test games going every week. So at this beginning, I was just playing 3 games a week for 6 months. And I just started picking up on more and more stuff. From there, we had our first GT, which I went a whopping 2 and 3 at, but I had a great time and learned a bunch of stuff there. And then my second GT, I went 4 and 1, got a little bit better. And then my third big event actually was LVO, 2 LVOs ago, I guess. I always wanted to do the Vegas trip and stuff, and had a bunch of fun with friends. I went 5 and 1, lost in round 6. Sean Naden put me down on some orcs. That was a fun learning experience. Let's put it that way.
Definitely. A taste of the top. Yeah.
Yes. And I learned a whole lot from that game. And I kind of got hooked on very competitive 40K.
So you were already like very competitive at that point. I don't even know if you realized it, but like playing 3 games a week, making it to 5-1 at LVO, you may not have known, but you were already like on it with competitive levels. So that's pretty awesome, Folger. Congrats on that for just so quick into the game. Yeah, but keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're all good. So yeah, that game was a doozy. So that's where I really started to dive in. Shortly after that, I got my first 5.0 at a GT, and then 10th edition rolled around. And 10th edition has really been, I really picked it up, learned it all very, very quickly, and been working really hard on my game. That's where I started to take it seriously and watching videos, digesting content online, playing games still. All that stuff has been like a huge help, just tips, tactics, and stuff. Now, all through this time, though, I started on Drukhari, but starting at like LVO, I was on Eldar, and that's where I basically saw all my success. I was pretty much an Eldar one trick, if we're going to use that terminology. But it definitely helped a bit with the start of 10th. Eldar was not okay at all on release. They were probably the best army I've ever seen on a 40K table.
You didn't play in 7th.
Yes, that's fair. I did not play in 7th. But yeah, I actually kind of didn't enjoy them. So I started buying new armies because I put a Wraith Knight on a table, and that was not fun for either me or my opponent. Right.
No, I mean, same way. I played Eldar for years and years and years, and I just like couldn't enjoy it in its initial form in this edition. So I just like haven't touched it since.
Yeah. So I started bouncing around armies. It's where I picked up like Necrons, picked up like Custodes, Drukhari. We're playing some other stuff like that. Then a couple nerfs go by. I hadn't gone to a couple GTs, and then picked it. I want to say it was like the nerf before. It was right after WTC. So after whatever nerf that was, that's where I picked it up again. Started playing the Incarn, which is by far my favorite model. So I was like, oh, I'm on board with that. And that's when we really started refining like the Eldar list that came out of that, which is what I played at LVO, which was like the stock standard Wraith Guard, Incarn, Triple Night Spinner. I just started refining that, and then took it to LVO. And obviously my goal was 5-1, but I felt really good about that the year before and ended up doing a lot better. So that was really surprising and a lot of fun. It was very stressful, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. So this explains like the timeline of your trajectory and growth as a player. But in Warhammer, it's very hard to just get so good so quickly because of the width of the game. And what I mean by that is like you could work on your army list construction or your deployments, and the meta keeps changing, and then the matchups keep changing, and how you lose a game can be very hard to figure out and pinpoint exactly why and what to work on. What is your process for improvement, if you could try to codify that?
It's kind of cliche, but losing is good. I am not the best loser to my friend group, gracious loser to other people, but our friend group's super competitive and we hate losing to each other.
I get that. Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's like.
Yeah, I can't stand losing to them. They're really good players, but it does happen. We always have practice games and stuff. And I think if you look at your losses, like, I mean, you can just look on your different scores, right? Because, I mean, ultimately, you got to score points. Say, hey, this is what I could have done better to set myself up to score these secondaries. Hey, this is what I could have done to score more primary. And just looking at it like a very black and white from your losses. Just played a practice game last night with Custodes. Completely misevaluated like what I should have done on my turn 1, and ended up only scoring like 20 primary just because he was able to take me off of primary for 2 straight turns. And then just like looking at that, learning from that, understanding like, hey, this is what I did wrong in this game. This is what I should work on in similar matches in the future. And actually just like writing it down, committing it to memory, whatever you need to do to say, hey, this is what I'm going to not do in the future. Right. And then over the course of 100 games or whatever it is, little by bit, we'll get better and better and just work on the overall like 40K fundamentals.
Dude, I love that. What do you think is your play style and approach to this game? I know you started with Eldar and then moved to Dark Eldar and Ynnari, and that all seems fast and whimsical to me, but then you're also just playing Custodes right here at this tournament. So how would you define that?
Yeah, Custodes is kind of off the wall, I guess. So I've basically played Eldar nonstop for about a year now, and I picked up Custodes. I've just been playing them wacky Custodes builds at like my local RTT I run, which is I played like 14 character Auric champions, which was a lot of fun, but not very good. But just playing games with Custodes just to have fun, give myself a break from Eldar, kind of mix it up. This is my first GT with Custodes, so I just worked on trying to find a list that I felt was the best stuff. I mean, I know we'll get into my list here in a little bit, but it's pretty generic. It is the good stuff, in my opinion, of the book. And I figured that'd give me the best chance of winning, and I did. So it ended up working out. I don't know if I'm qualified, per se, to speak on behalf of Custodes players, but I will do my best.
The Custodes Discord channel and the Art of War Discord server is buzzing for this episode. So you're qualified today, Folger.
All right. And then 1 day certification. I'll take it.
Excellent. So did you practice Custodes leading up to this tournament? You just were like, I feel like playing something different, which, I can get behind, right? Shaking it up for the sake of it is fun. But, 0 practice games wins a GT. That's kind of crazy.
I had a couple practice games with the list. I probably had like 3 or 4. I had played it at an RTT like 2 weekends before. Then I had a practice game with a friend before that with the exact list. And I from the beginning of as soon as the book got released, because I played them for like one event, Index, they kind of got Codex death, which was very much nerfed in the Codex, which felt pretty bad. But
yeah,
all of I'm not counting the Sisters Custodes Detachment. We don't talk about that one. But the other 3 are all kind of, they're okay. Like there are some good things in each of them, but none of them stand out a lot over the others, in my opinion. So both Auric Champions and Shield Host are both basically damage amplifiers. Make your Custodes hit harder. I've never really felt that Custodes needed to hit harder. Coming from Eldar, right? I'm very squishy, a T3 1-wound model, and don't hit that hard in combat. In 10th edition, RIP to my Howling Banshees from 9th edition. Those were sick. But with Custodes, I'm like, whoa, this is insane when I picked them up. Now, obviously, putting a durable model on the table before, bit of an adjustment. But 5 attacks at 7/2/2 hitting on 2s with exploding is just really good. Just kills a bunch of stuff. So I went what's the most kind of like tech detachment. So what gives me the most utility? That's where I figured Talons would give me the best options for that, and I figured that would play into my play style the best.
And what did Talons give you? I'm not gonna lie, I'm not very familiar with Custodes.
Okay, no, you're all good.
Yeah.
So Talons has 6 stratagems, like they all do. I only used 2 of them this weekend, unfortunately. I almost had an opportunity to use a 3rd, but it doesn't come up very often. So the 2 main ones for Talons are the ability to fall back, shoot, and charge with 2 units. Now, here's how this works. So all the Talons, they're the power of friendship. So you can target 1 unit and just do it like a normal stratagem, or if you can target a Sisters unit and a Custodes unit that are within 6 inches of each other, you can target both for the same cost. So this one is fallback, shoot, and charge. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yep, that's good.
I just from Eldar, love having that stratagem. Use it all the time. Super relevant. Don't get your stuff tagged. Get to basically slingshot off of units into other units and objectives and all that stuff. Super powerful. And then the main one is the reactive move. So I played Index Custodes briefly. You played, what was it called then? The enhancement that gave you a 9-inch reactive move. I forget what it was called, but it basically gave 1 unit a flat 6 reactive move. Every time I used that stratagem, felt it was super powerful. I was like, well, it's got to be good on a whole army, right?
Is it a 6-inch reactive move or D6?
It's flat 6.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
And you can, and also this one can target 2 units. There's a Sisters unit, so you can do some very cheeky stuff with it. So that there's that one. That's the main 2 reasons to play Talons are those 2 stratagems right there. Now you do get the detachment rule, which is like half a detachment rule, but it does come up sometimes as well. So they basically buff each other. The sisters get +1 to hit while close to Custodes. The Custodes get a 5-up Feel No Pain against mortals and psychic while near sisters, which doesn't come up very much, but just built-in mortal defense is just nice to have on your 50 points per model units.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's like your mortal wounds is like one of the prime ways to kill Custodes, and just getting a Feel No Pain against that is tremendous. So this was like the tech you had basically solve the problems that your army could encounter, as opposed to like provide specific tech for a matchup.
Correct. Like I just wanted general utility in I don't want to be a golden boy that my only avenue is walk forward and hit you hard. I want to be able to try to play some like technical games and like kind of do the Eldar thing where you make small engagements and then utilize your stratagems or your army rules or whatever, and you find advantage in that small like skirmish on an overall battlefield.
I love that description. So what drew you to Custodes? And I know you said you wanted to switch it up, but there's 26 factions in Warhammer. You know, it doesn't have to be Custodes. And they are not like a popular choice or a meta pick right now. Like usually the people playing Custodes are like, I play Custodes, and the diehard fans. So I'm just curious, like more than anything, like why Custodes?
So 2 reasons. One of them was kind of a joke. So I got a bunch of models and stuff from my LVO second place. And I had basically full faction of the relevant Custodes infantry models just from that. I had like a couple getting started boxes and stuff. So I just had the army, bought a Trajan, bought 2 tanks, and figured it out. So I had the army. It was available. Thought it was cool. And I figured, what is the army that is most unlike Eldar? I didn't want to play knights. And I was like, Custodes are kind of the opposite of Eldar in the fact that they are big and durable and elite versus more MSU. And they are monodimensional, where Eldar is multifaceted. So that's kind of, I just wanted to mix it up and try to like see if I could play the other style.
Nice. And that's a great way to get better too, just forcing yourself to have those different perspectives on the game.
Yeah, I feel like it'd make me a better 40K player overall if I start mixing up factions kind of this year, starting to get just more reps and see the game from different perspectives. And it'll also help me then when I play those armies to then have that perspective.
Ultra, I love that. All right, so we've been beating around the bush a lot about this. What is the actual list that you took to this tournament?
Okay, so the list is titled Mid AF. Kind of how I feel about this army. I'm actually lost a bet to a friend when I went 5-0, and I have to play them at a GT this weekend again. So we're gonna see how that goes. Wish me luck. You're
gonna go on a rampage with these guys. Just keep on winning. Become the best player in the world, like Custodes right here.
Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just take them to WCW. That can't go wrong.
Exactly.
All right, so let me run you through this list. So it's 3 Blade Champions, no enhancements. You get 4 Custodian Guard, one of which has the shield, just because I wanted the 4th wound, and he usually daisy chains back. Draxus, Inquisitor Draxus joins that unit of guard. I have an Anathema Psychona Rhino, which is the Sisters Rhino. I've got 2 Caladius Grab Tanks with the Twin Arachnus Blaze Cannons. It's the Brightlands profile. And then I have 15 Wardens, 1 unit of Prosecutors, and 2 units of Witch Seekers. The Witch Seekers are the Sisters that have Flamers and give Scout to the Rhino, that are just utility. And that is the entire list. It's like 9 units with characters.
So it's kind of classic in the sense that it is triple Warden Brick, 2 Caladius, and a Draxus Guard unit. It's got a lot of the same data sheets that you're used to seeing.
Yes, 100%. I mean, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Why fix it? Okay. It's got 4 real units, 2 tanks, and like some small skirmish stuff. How do you actually win games with that in modern 40K, where there's actions and the actions are not very rewarding, and you have so many things to be doing, and there's so much lethality in the game too? What is like the strategy list? Let's start there.
Okay, the strategy of the list is you want to be able to control the board and maximize 2 key things. One of which is the Warden's durability. Obviously, they have a once per game for Feel No Pain, which is incredibly powerful. I mean, back when Bully Boys was a thing, like we all saw Magnobs just running through people. It's obviously not as good as that, but the once per game Feel No Pain is just pretty much almost blanks a phase, pretty much. That you might lose a guy or 2, It's very rare that you lose the full squad through a Feel No Pain, unless they're dedicating like 2 to 3 times the points of the unit into it.
Right.
So you get to front line with 15 of those. Sometimes you start 10 on the board. Sometimes you start 15, just for the rapid ingress threat. But you're going to walk. That's your front line. You're going to be walking onto objectives with that, and it's just really awkward for people to deal with. And the thing you can do with Talons is you can set up kind of weird positions where you don't actually expose yourself, where you just go like 9 inches from the edge of their objective. So if they walk onto the objective, you can trigger your reactive move and just move on. So then they have to, it's this added like layer of complexity for your opponent where they have to always be thinking about, okay, my opponent can reactive move anywhere. How do I play around it? And that combined with wardens that advance in charge, because the blade champions, it's why I'm playing 3 of them. They hit hard in melee, which is great, but they could have like 1 strength 1 attack, and I would unfortunately still play them, just because. Yeah, they need advance in charge very, very bad. The training wheels have got to come off. They got to go forward. So their threat range being that lets you stage up really well, and then the main thing is the wardens I feel are squishy without the Feel No Pain, which is crazy to say because like Custodians, but without
it's like relatively squishy, right? When you're a 50-point model, you better be tough.
Correct. Like an exocrine looks at them bad, and sometimes they just fall over. Right.
That's true. Certain profiles are obviously more effective into them. That high strength, high AP, flat damage 3 is like perfect into these things.
Yeah, and without a Feel No Pain, like you're losing like 300 points in an activation, and that's not good. So with the ability to blank 1 phase, it's important to be able to get in. You're going to hit first, and then you want to pile in and touch something. Once you've done this, ideally 2 things are going to happen. They either have to full wrap you with their army, so you don't reactive move. Now you're in combat. So as soon as they fall back, most things are not going to be movement 9. So then it's going to trigger a reactive move. And then you can normally jump walls or cut angles and things and just limit the amount of stuff that's going to shoot the wardens. Not even like nothing can shoot them, but just limit it. And then that extra layer of less stuff shooting them with the Feel No Pain makes them way more durable than they would be otherwise. Because, I mean, with only really 15 models to like play the midfield with, you need to get the absolute most of them. And I found that with the Talons reactive move strat in tandem with 15 wardens, it would be enough to hold most armies off. The where you run into trouble is the ones that play 2 phases really well. That's where they can get you.
So I get that you have these warden bricks advancing and charging, staging up, and their durability with the blank of phase can be used to, as you said, blank a phase. That's Feel No Pain is really what it is. But are you threat overloading? Like all 4 units are fighting them at once. The guard move up, the wardens come in. Are you ingressing? What's like the kind of typical play pattern for this army?
Okay. So it depends a little bit on the matchup, but most matchups I'm always starting 1 in rapid ingress. Just the rapid ingress stratagem in 10th edition is super good. And it's one of the reasons I was originally playing Trajan in this list, just because I wanted to hit harder. But rapid ingress into an advance and charge unit means your threat range is massive. I found that was more valuable. But in terms of play patterns, turn 1, you want to be locking down your natural expansion objective. Whatever the mission is, your Custodians, you can lock this down. Between like heroic intervention, putting 5 wardens on there, and like reactive move, like you can get that objective turn 1. You do that, and then you stage up for the other 2. If you go second, if they're on the objective, they're probably in advance and charge range because you're deploying pretty close to on the line. And if you go first, you just stage up and set it up. So either, like I said, you can reactive move onto it if they move onto it, or they move onto it. They have to basically trade a unit away for free because not very much lives a full unit of wardens.
Right.
And then you're just gumming them up basically because your OC3, like you only need like 2 to 3 guys to live most of the time to them not control the objective. And it's while they're chewing through that on the middle and their natural expansion, you're just racking up points. and then the rest of your army moves is like a wave 2 up the board. Your tanks move on to the objectives to control them and then shoot down lane, and then the next wave of wardens hits. So it's kind of like a board pressure list in that way, and you're just basically jamming people into their deployment zones while they chew through wardens and you score points.
If you are listening to this, it probably means you play Warhammer 40k. And if you're playing Warhammer, you know you need a lot of dice. Baron of Dice is where we get our dice from. They produce amazing different kinds of dice. We just recently got all kinds of different faction dice shipped to us, which we use on our stream games. But not only do they look really cool, but they're highly customizable. You can get different symbols, corners that are square, corners that are round, different shapes and sizes, different sided dice. It's all the rage. And they're customizable in color and design as well. They are so cool looking. Not only that, but they feel great to roll in your hands. I've never held dice that roll and feel this good. Not only that, but they are scientifically perfectly balanced. There are tons of case studies on people rolling thousands of dice and recording all the results that they get. And sometimes you might get a die that rolls just a few too many ones. We've all had to throw it out before. These dice are not like that. They are perfectly balanced to a T, thousands of rolls, perfect distribution. If you want to take your Warhammer game seriously and make sure the dice are not screwing you over, get some Baron of dice.
How are you competing with people on the scoreboard? Like, conceptually, I understand like you're stat checking them and jamming them and locking them in their zone, but they have typically way more units than you do, and things like secondaries will come a lot more naturally to them. You are going to struggle to do containment and cleanse and use your units at the same time, as an example. How do you navigate the secondary portion of the game?
So secondaries are kind of weird right now. I don't know if you looked at like in detail of my event. I think I dropped 8 points over 5 games. So secondaries was not an issue.
Somehow, yeah.
Yeah, that was probably the most shocking part about any of that, where I was just scoring.
Is this
all the
like
points.
you're tabling your opponents so you just have time to score secondaries? Like, what is that?
Not necessarily. I mean, on a couple games, yes, but most of the secondaries now are not actually the action ones. There's like 3 to 4 that are like the annoying do actions on places like cleanse, contain, recover, sabotage, those ones, right? Your Custodes, you get away with a bunch of the action ones because you have durable stuff. So normal times you could not recover safely in the middle of the game, but if you recover with a unit of wardens or carry a Draxus squad while she's 18-inch lone op in the midfield, that's probably going to go off. Same thing with like the sabotage. And then that's where the sisters package comes in. Like, that's all you're scoring. Originally, I had a Calidus assassin in the list, and we ended up just dropping her for basically 4 cheap sisters units that are there to run around and do actions. So I have the Rhino, I have prosecutors that can hold my back point and then move forward if they need to, and then 2 units of scouting witch seekers. And basically, you just want to kind of centralize the Rhino and then put sisters off to the other side, and that'll give you enough to do the actions when they come up. And then the second part of this is your Custodes. I know at the beginning of this I said, hey, you have 6 stratagems, and then listed off 2. You don't have very many stratagems, so you should be more aggressive with your CP discard, like on turn 2 forward. On turn 1, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it, just because there's so many ones that your Custodes you're not going to be able to score.
Yeah.
But on turns 2 through 5, I think spending the CP to just churn through an additional secondary is really going to ramp your scores up, like maybe 5 or 10 points a game just from doing that.
Really? So you're aggressively using CP to cycle your cards. I know you mentioned that there's not many strats, right? Fall back and do stuff and reactive mode, but those are great strats that you want to use like every battle round, I'd say. And then on top of that, there's CP reroll, which I imagine is important to you, or just like auto passive battle shock. You just can't be failing those with Custodes. Like,
no.
What is your CP economy like?
So I'm spoiled from playing Eldar with a Autarch Wayleaper, so it feels like I'm tight on CP, but that's only because of the things you just mentioned. So you're pretty much, you're either reactive moving every single turn, or you're setting up a reactive move. So then your opponent has to respect it. And if they respect it and play around it, then you just don't reactive move. And then they did all this to commit, and then you just have your CP still. I think the was trying to think over the entire GT. I think I only used 6 stratagems. They were the 2 I mentioned: rapid ingress, heroic intervention, the CP discard, and what's the extra one? And interrupt. That was the other one. So just you have very like you're using the core rule stratagems all the time, and you really, I didn't feel it, I guess, per se. Like I felt like I always had enough CP. It's just, I think, really important to, I guess this is more of an overall 40k concept. Think about your turns 2 and 3 on turn 1 for your CP usage. So whether, even if you can score 2 cards, sometimes in some matchups it's probably better to just score the easier one and then discard the other one for a CP, just so you have that 3 and 4 CP on turns 2 and 3, so that when the go turn happens, you have everything up. You have your heroic intervention, you have your interrupt, and you have your reactive move.
Yeah. So overall, it's a tight balancing act, right? Like you've got all your CP management. You're trying to time together this big push turn where you jam your opponent up, and of course you have to be very mindful about when to pop that 4+ Feeling of Pain once per game ability on your wardens, which phase. And a lot of players can do multi-phase damage, right? They shoot you really hard, then they follow it up with a charge. And games in 40k are often not decided in a single turn. So how do you navigate the decision-making tree for all 3 of your different units and when to pop the 4 Feeling of Pain once per game?
Yeah, so that's where I was kind of alluded to earlier, where you're setting up skirmishes in the game. So 5 wardens, even with a Feeling of Pain, gets blown off an objective if it's just standing in the open, and their whole army lines up on it. Like that's just going to happen. It's unless you roll like insane 4s, you're just going to lose the unit. So what you want to set up is basically situations where it's awkward for them and they have multiple threats. So if there's 2 units of wardens, as an example, they have to deal with both of them. What you can do is they reactive move 1, so it doesn't get shot as much. You feel no pain the other. And then the one lives most of it, the Feel No Pain. Then they're multi-phase army. They're going to charge both. You have the Feel No Pain up for the second one, the other one. You still have interrupt. Like so, that's why I'm saying the CP economy. You just really want to keep your threats open more so than that the threats are good. I feel like the threat of reactive move and the threat of interrupt forces opponents to just make decisions that put them into disadvantageous positions, and just keying off of that is really good. And I did say that they're squishy. They're really not. Like you are a T6 2-up 4-up model with 3 wounds and -1 to wound and higher strength, and sometimes that's just enough breakpoints to live things that they shouldn't. So it really just, you got to live for really just 1 turn. So if you can live the 1 turn, you can fall back, shoot and charge, like you're going to hit stuff. And like I said at the beginning, like Custodes 25 attacks at 7/2/2, just with weight of attacks, just kills most things.
Yeah. I like it, Folger. It's really strong, really powerful army. It's tried and true, right? There are times though where your baseline strategy doesn't necessarily in this turn, right? And you have a small sample size, but theoretically you're trying your strategy, and then sometimes in Warhammer it doesn't do that well. How do you handle pivoting mid-game with such a 4 data sheet type of army?
Yeah, so that's why I kind of played Talons, just for the most utility, because I feel like that is what Custodes last the most. So the dangerous thing that happens is, right, you run in with the Wardens, you score some points, and then you get blown off and you have no front line. And that's kind of where the tanks and Draxus shine really well. Because if you're trading Wardens even for even points or even for like a little bit less, Draxus and the tanks will just pick up stuff at range very efficiently. Draxus in particular, I think, is like an auto include. She's just insane in Custodes, but she's probably the best. I don't know if she's the best model on my list, but she's certainly up there. Every game I've played with her, she goes like 4x on her point cost and what she kills. And you just want to basically trade away the game and then make it 800 points on 800 points as fast as possible. in that scenario, that's where Custodes kind of shine. And hey, I'm a T6 2 up 4 up. You only have 800 points, right? So
what does trading away the game look like to you, though? Do you just like send your army and then there's like the scraps of yours fights the scraps of theirs?
Yeah, so scraps on scraps, like most of the time you play your sisters safe, so you have all your sisters to just hold points, and then you've pushed up so much, and then the tanks and the Draxus brick, and then your third unit of wardens is really like the second wave. And when I mean trading away the game, I mean don't just jam your army and trade them for like scouts. You still want to play like a normal game. You just want to do it in such a way that you're trading even resources. And if you are trading even resources, you're probably winning on primary because, like I said, you're able to lock down your natural expansion, and then the battle's happening on the other two objectives. I think that's just a good way to get ahead in 40K in general.
Yeah, I like that. So you mentioned the Draxus brick, and I'm familiar with this evil monstrosity, but could you just walk us through what that is? Because I think it's so easy to slip if you're not up and up on Custodes.
Yeah, so I think it's probably the coolest unit in Custodes. So you play it with a unit of Custodian Guard. Custodian Guard give you two things. They have a once per game shoot twice, and they have reroll ones to wound, or if they're on an objective that you control, you get full rerolls to wound, which is like the perfect buff profile for Draxus. Draxus has two guns, both of which are pretty sick. The first of which is bananas. So it's 4 shots, hits on 3s, but she has a buff to hit better against Xenos. And then it's 402 dev wounds, anti-infantry 4+. And that just kind of shreds everything with rerolls to wound and a double shoot. And then her other profile is like 6 attacks. It's all damage too. It's like 602 exploding, or 602 with like double exploding 6s. And she just has like on average like 10 shots from herself, and then you have like 3 guard, which doesn't sound like a lot, but what Custodes actually lack is like anti-infantry guns. So like the actual Custodes spears, the 4, like they're 2 shots apiece, they're 412, doesn't sound that bad. I just assume they do nothing every game. I'm just always disappointed with them. They just don't.
Yeah, it sounds good, but it's like actually
it sounds good in my head, and I'm like, I hate on 2s. I'm gonna kill some Marines, and then I kill like a scout. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And she just levels stuff. Like I've had her kill a 10-man knob unit and a boss with the Envalm from Wagup, like by herself without sweating.
That's kind of crazy, though.
Yeah, she just killed me.
How is it so destructive? It's reroll wounds from your unit of Custodes Guard, and then she is a D6 shot sustained 2 gun.
No,
and
it's
then
flat 6 shots.
Oh, flat 6 shots sustained 2. Okay, so that can roll some 6s that can start to
roll some 6s
slam.
that can spike. So I mean, it doesn't. It's kind of like the sum of its parts is greater than the one, if that makes sense. So with everything combined, on like if you double shoot, and just as an example, you shoot Terminators with her, which hey, it's a 2-up save and cover. You're all AP 1 or 0. It's not going to do anything, right? You average like 3 dead Terminators just because her dev wound gun is so efficient at killing infantry. I mean, it's 4s with full rerolls. It's a little swingy, but you average like 2 to 3, and that's 2 dead, like 1.5 dead Terminators per.
That's actually kind of crazy.
Yeah, that gun is bananas. And just using that to actually just pick up units at range is just a tool that I think you just need in Custodes. Because otherwise you just have your tank shooting, which is very good, but it's like 4 shots. You just want the volume for infantry.
Makes sense. So all in all, Folger, this has been an awesome conversation about how Custodes working on that. I'm really excited to go into your games because I think with the Custodes, positioning matters a lot more. But before we get there, I have a couple more questions. How big of a factor was terrain with your army? Were you trying to hide for the most part until you exposed everything? Did you even care? Because sometimes in Warhammer, to hide behind terrain, you have to be pretty far back. And how do you make that choice with Custodes?
I guess I look at 40K because I've played Eldar so much through the lens of Eldar. So I tend to play very, very safe with my units. And even though I am Custodes and stuff, I really don't like ever exposing myself without a clear advantage. if that makes
Right.
sense. So
No, it absolutely does.
I want to be staging up in such a way that I know I'm safe. I think just taking the extra 2 to 3 minutes to pre-measure everything, ask your opponent questions, and be like, okay, where can you get to with like your advanced and shooting stuff, your charges, all that stuff, and just having that info to know, okay, I'm going to move here and I am safe, and then you stage up with that, and then on your like go turns, the turns 2, 3, and 4, that's when you're coming out and you're able to be safe still because of the Warden's durability. And just if you gum up enough of their army, they can't put all of their army into one unit. They have to split everything. And that's where Wardens really shine. So I would say as far as terrain goes, you really want to use it to your advantage, especially on Custodes, just because you're a melee army that's like all infantry. And infantry and is really good at like just staging up and not getting bogged down by terrain. So you should use that to your advantage. And I would play it very, very safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like as safe as possible. Like I'm not exposing myself ever if I don't think I am either locking down a primary on turn 1 or I'm hitting something relevant or taking an objective or scoring points. Like I would never just walk 5 Wardens onto the middle turn 1 and say, hey, come deal with this, because
Really? So you're like never stat checking your opponent like that?
No, I don't think Custodes can. I think the lethality of the game is too much that if I just walked 5 Wardens onto the middle point on turn 1, that they would die most games.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So ultimately, when your opponent like puts like a small unit out onto that middle objective or on an expansion objective, you don't overreact to that if you don't have to. You wait for your army to kind of get there naturally.
Yeah, so I mean, if they put, I don't know, 10 cultists on that expansion objective, right?
Mm-hmm.
I may not be able to get there turn 1, but I can put a unit and stage up there for turn 2. So they might score a tick, but then the follow-up turn, you have Custodes that are running in, and they're 18 OC on a Warden unit. So if you can just get to the objective, you're 30 attacks and 18 OC, you're going to flip it almost every time. And then they're bogged down that way. So
yeah,
you really just, I'm not trading, 360 points for a Warden unit and a character for 50 points of cultists. You really want to avoid that.
Yeah, makes total sense. Okay, so that kind of wraps up my questions about your army list for part 1. I'm really excited to go through your games like I talked about earlier. That's going to be for our patrons. But I have one more question before I let you go. If there is a piece of advice you can give an aspiring Warhammer player to help them get better on their journey, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a big question. Lose a lot of games. The thing that really helped me the most was just from every loss, try and don't overcomplicate it and say, hey, look at the macro. Why did I lose this game over 5 different turns with all these different interaction points? You'll get overwhelmed. And that's where I think I struggled a lot, was just like not understanding why I lost. So if you can just look at like one interaction point of per game of, hey, this didn't go my way. Why did it not go my way? And then just learn from that. So I would say play a lot of games, learn at least one thing from all those practice games, and then let time take its course. You'll just get better.
I love it. That is great advice, Folger. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been awesome getting to know you. Awesome having you on the podcast. And congratulations once again for the victory with the one-off Custodes, and hopefully to be 2 after you said that.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. You can catch part 2 of this conversation along with the rest of our podcast library over on our Patreon, patreon.com/AOW40K. You'll get access to this part 2 along with 260 other episodes and our amazing Discord server. We're going to head over there and talk about Folger's actual games played. If you want to learn more, check it out. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll catch you later.
Like what you just listened to? Check out Art of War Down Under and Art of War Unbroken on the competitive 40K network. The Art of War 40K.com.